Welcome to the pod. On today's episode, we're talking with Kyle Kemper. Kyle's an interesting guy. He's got a lot of controversial yet thought-provoking opinions about the world we're living in at the moment. And Kyle's been in the news lately. He happens to be the brother of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And we had a really interesting talk. Have a listen. Kyle Kemper. Hi, Kyle. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mike.
Great.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. So, Kyle, I wanted to have you on today to talk about a few things. You've been in the news recently, big National Post article, and we'll get to that a little later. But first, a little backstory for our audience. So, about a year ago, Kyle DM'd me on Twitter, and he was very gracious enough to send me a really amazing Bitcoin product called Swiss Key. Got one right here. Swiss Key operates as a bearer instrument that can hold Bitcoin, but doesn't expose the private key, sort of like an open dime. So you can transact with it completely anonymously and without fees. It's a great product. Anyways, this past week, Kyle's been in the news, and it turns out he's the brother of Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada. And I never made that connection up until now. It was news to me. I just knew Kyle as a fellow Bitcoiner, but we'll get to that a little later. So first off, I want to talk about Swiss Key and using NFC in this sort of novel way. What can you say about it?
Yeah, so I mean, the first time I saw these cards that are made by a company called Tangem, I was just like, whoa, this looks wicked.
Yeah.
I've been a huge evangelist like yourself for the technology for a long time, and making things really easy is the key towards adoption. Right. Until our experience can compete with the legacy systems, then it's going to be tough to see adoption. So when I saw these, it's like, wow, all right, I got to get my hands on some of these. Right. So I ordered a bunch of them to play with and to give them away for when we launched Swiss Key last August in Zurich. And and then after, it turns out when you make a big order of products from a young company, that it builds pretty good relationships with them. Right. And I explained what we were looking to do with Swiss Key, and now we've got them as a partner and one of the products in our suite, and we created these branded cards. And so we made Ethereum and Bitcoin cards. Yeah. And after getting a bunch of them from Tangent, like playing with them, like A, for just gifting them to people, but B, as like a long-term HODL solution, like sticking it in a Pelican case and burying it like in a really like simple way like that. Like it worked. We used them as like, I've dropped them around as kind of like a scavenger hunt. So yeah, that's fun. If anybody's heading by the Las Vegas airport, go to the Rubies, look under the table by the emergency exit, and there's a card underneath the sticker hidden, and it's got 10,000 bits on it. So go check it out. Wow.
Yeah, I do see a lot of potential with these cards. I've been playing with them myself. At first I kind of made like a Bitcoin piggy bank. I think that's a great use case where you can kind of embed the card inside the piggy bank, and you can fund it, you can withdraw from it. And I've been getting into NFTs lately. NFTs were big in Bitcoin a few years ago. It's kind of migrated over to Ethereum in the last few years, but I was big into like the whole rare Pepe scene. And what I've done here is I've taken a Swiss card, and I can't afford to brand them, right? Because I think there's like, what is it, like 1,000 order limit to brand them, something like that. Yeah. But anyways, so the next best thing was proof of concept. I took a Swiss card and I put it in this little sleeve that has a rare Pepe outside. So I'm imagining like I could send the NFT to the card, and I think there'd probably need to be some work done with the app itself so that it could recognize the NFT so you could send it around. But I think there's something there because NFTs are hot again, and it's something you gotta look into.
I mean, I was at ETH Denver last year. Right, that was like the last conference before the mayhem began, and I've got a bunch of Ethereum Tangent cards, right, and they are fully capable of storing ERC20s and 721s. So it's all right there. There just is no app functionality to actually sign or move those those tokens off there. So there's got to be some development done in order to do that. And that's something that I'm sure Tangent would support the development of, and that's something that I've been interested in too. But it's just not like, you know, my core forte. But I mean, I really believe like especially with the Ethereum cards, like because you could like, you know, have say USDC on there, and make a purchase at like, you know, at the food trucks, for example, right outside of ETH Denver. Like they had the best in Denver there present. So you can make a payment like with USDC potentially to them, and then get back like an NFT like as a reward, as like, you know, that Foursquare check-in, but you're actually getting like, you know, a piece of art, a trust token. And I feel like you can do so much with that, and having an actual card that represents, you know, this multi-purposed bearer instrument wallet, where you could actually be like, look, and then be able to tap it and scan it and be like, whoa, this one's worth 0, it's not worth anything. Or it's like, damn, this one's worth like, you know, a lot. It has value on it. So
I mean, do you want to talk a little bit about the security model? Because some people might not really understand what's happening on this card, and they might even think, well, maybe it's like a Cassasius card where, you know, they put the private key on it, and maybe the company still has the private key, but that's not really the case here, right? It's secured.
Right. The keys are generated on the card, on the chip, in the secure microchip. The next versions of the card will come with no keys generated, and it'll generate once you set it up. So you'll set up, like when you got that card, it already had the address on it. There's the potential that there's a whitelist out there of at least the addresses, you know, for it. So by generating the keys, you'll know that there won't be a whitelisted address for that, and assuming there's some sort of entropy that goes into it. But there's no backing up there's no way to export the private key off of there. So, you know, the card is the key at the end of the day. And a lot of people are like, you know, some people have issues with that but you know, if you have the ability to back it up, then it's no longer a bearer instrument. And you can trust it as if giving it to a person.
Exactly. It's by design. Yeah, absolutely.
And then by actually having the card and being able to give it to someone, you're making a transaction, you're making an off-chain transaction, and there's no record of that transaction, so, which, you know, eat your heart out, Fatif.
So I mean, the biggest competitor to these cards is probably OpenDime, and I'm not trying to slag OpenDime in any way. I think it's a great product as well. But the thing I like about these Tangib cards, Swiss Key, is that you don't have to destroy the device or expose the private key to redeem the funds, and that's the case with OpenDime. You've got to poke it, and then it's basically exposed at that point. You have to wipe the funds off the OpenDime. But Swiss Key is reusable, right? So you can redeem the funds right off of it, but the card is not compromised in any way. The private key is still secure. You can put more funds on it. You can still use it over and over and over again.
Correct.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
you give it to somebody else, and like, you know, then they've got it. And, you know, the OpenDimes, I feel like there are some additional potential uses for them after you've even spent them. But, you know, for me, I have OpenDimes. I'm not sure if I've ever actually properly used them. I've received a bunch of them. I think I've purchased some and I've given them. But it just wasn't really, I don't know. I'm like pretty like, you know, good experienced guy in terms of getting things set up. And I just remember having a challenge with the actual, like, you know, figuring out how to get a wallet, even just going on it. So, like, you know, and if I'm having a problem, like, tell that to my mother or my father.
You know, no, I personally, I think OpenDimes are great. I think they're great for the Bitcoin audience. But yeah, there is this whole other universe of people who, you know, like your grandmother or whoever, who the Tangent card probably is a better fit. I mean,
it's just super easy. You download the app. You use iOS or Android?
I use iOS. So
like
great.
when you tap that, like, you know, you get a little feedback too. It's like, okay,
it's awesome. Yeah.
You know, we were in Miami this past year and we participated in the hackathon, and it traditionally has been held in Wynwood, and I've always like, brought entries that were very art related to
Yeah.
that. And this year I happened to hook up with this awesome artist named Sergey Gordienko. And, I had this idea. I had all these cards. I was like, yo, Sergey, let's make a piece of art that includes these cards.
Right.
So we built this huge piece of art that says, do what you love. And inside of it, it had 44 cards,
Right.
all within it. And we have the whitelist of it. And I think what it represents, the world's first ever physical faucet. So it is a place where you can send it to, and then it's like a treasure hunt with your phone. You're like, tap, 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 tap,
Right.
tap, tap, tap. And if you find some, you just tap, you put your address in, tap, and send it off.
Now, redeeming by design, it's slow, right? You got to hold it to the card for like 60 seconds or something. And that makes sense. 10 seconds. Okay.
They wanted, like, Tangent wanted even longer. I was like, no way.
Right. I guess the concern is that if it's in your pocket and someone's walking by you or something.
Drive by attack, which is like,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it is a potential threat vector, and I hope one day that these cards are so successful and permeate the market so much that people's time is worth doing drive-by NFC.
It might be. So I mean, the way I see Swiss Key really excelling is in a high fee environment, and that's kind of where things are heading. You might not want to spend $20 or $50 or whatever the fees might be on Bitcoin at some point, or have an auditable trail on the blockchain. And Swiss Key kind of solves this, right? I mean, you can transact with them an infinite amount of times off chain, and there's no fees involved. It's pretty amazing.
I agree, and they're like, and for Bitcoin specifically, they're good. But hey, there's other coins too.
Yeah.
And I love Bitcoin. I have all respect in the world for Bitcoin, but I'm not of the opinion that Bitcoin or die. So hey, look, like, throughput of all networks, and go for it. These other ones work too. Like, you can't tell me Dash doesn't work. I just ordered fucking Thai food off of Uber Eats, like using Bit Refill. Like,
right. Yeah. I
mean,
my personal perspective is I am a Bitcoin maximalist, but I think competition is good. I have no problem with altcoins existing. They make Bitcoin better. It's like, it's like when I hear this rhetoric about, all the altcoins must die. First of all, it's unrealistic. There's always going to be altcoins as long as there's Bitcoin. But also, I think it's good. I think this robust kind of competition, ultimately, it's good for Bitcoin.
Absolutely. And like, as we, and like, just look at the Ethereum, like that experience you're talking about, doing like a stablecoin transaction, receiving back an NFT, and like, all the different things that are possible there, like that actually works right now today. And yes, there are people saying Bitcoin, like, we're going to have the ability to do all this one day. It's like, great, awesome, one day.
Right.
But right today, it works. So like, the time is always now. And I'll also just say that the Swiss key card itself is just one piece of Swiss Key. And Swiss Key, what it is, it's a Swiss Army knife for crypto. So it's lots of different tools to give you access to it. So we're working with Edge Wallet as well towards doing a white labeled, improved, in my opinion, version of Edge Wallet. So having an awesome mobile wallet, the card itself, and then looking for other awesome products to bring underneath this fold to really make a strong kind of brand play with this, because this symbol is like, it has deep resonance of safety and security and neutrality and privacy and quality. And that's something that I truly believe in. And I'm a big believer in brands and branding, and that in order to succeed, especially with the late adopters and the majority, a good brand helps, and having subconscious reference helps.
So now I know you also have a book called The Unified Wallet. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So, at a Miami hackathon back in like 2015, I worked with a team to build a app called the Social Wallet, and we were just trying to build a new front end for ChangeTip to simplify ChangeTip, just to make it about sending and requesting and using like all their infrastructure. I love ChangeTip. I just feel like there was just a lot going on with it, and it was branded as like a tipping platform. So it was all about tipping.
Yeah.
I was like, you've got a social payment platform here that's so powerful, but like we just need to like, simplify and not get messed up in the branding, because there was an issue there. So, we did that, and we tried that, and we built something really awesome over a hackathon. And then I kind of went into a bit of a journey into like thinking about where wallets would go and what would be possible with wallets. I remember Andreas gave a talk at the Toronto Bitcoin Expo in 2014, all about the future of like tons of different tokens and a wallet and user choice and self custody. Like that really kind of was on me. And then like, I had this vision about like how it could be done, and it wouldn't be something that like, I could do, or like one person could really build it, more in like an open source kind of function, but what is possible. So with the book, it was like, okay, let's put this vision out there about what becomes possible when we have full control of our keys, of our money, of our data, and of our identity all in one place. And how like thinking, like just trying to draw simple parallels to like the physical wallet in your pocket, how like the cash is Bitcoin, like the cash slot is Bitcoin, all the cards represent like, digital ID, verified credentials, blockchain solutions, etc. And now we have the ability in the open source digital programmable nature of this technology for the cards to start talking to each other and talking to the money, with me, the wallet owner, having control to be able to provide consent and assent towards doing things, and all the amazing possibilities of what that makes, of what we can realize when we have that. So that was, the unified wallet, espousing the potential to unlock a digital golden age with a self-sovereign, self-custody, universal open source wallet to counter the centralized, dystopic, super digital wallet of the WeChats of the world, and of the Accentures and the World Economic Forum and groups like that will try to bring to us.
Right. So now I did want to get into the big article of the National Post this past week, and let you set the record straight if there's anything in the article you feel maybe wasn't presented accurately. You were called an anti-vaxxer, follower of QAnon, for instance. So how do you respond to these allegations?
Oh, well, first off, like, let me preface how this article came to be.
Yeah.
So John Iveson followed me on Twitter, and it's like he had followed by a verified click, and that's a name that I've heard before. I was like, oh, from the National Post. And I looked at some of his articles, like, all right, this guy's like, he's not like, just a puppet. Like, he's he's asking questions, which is great. I was like, so I messaged him. I was like, John, keep up the great work. Like, do you want any crypto? And like, and he's like, no, it's a mystery to me. He's like, but I know the Chinese and the Bohemians are doing something. I was like,
Bohemians?
Like, the Barbadians are
okay.
And I was like, okay, well, yeah, that's central bank digital currency, which isn't really blockchain or crypto. It's just like, this. But I was like, download a wallet. Download this Edge wallet. I'll send you some Doge, like, so you can see, so we can demystify it and understand. So it all really began with me trying to send this reporter Dogecoin, which is amazing and hilarious. And then he got back to me. He's like, it really seems like this is more than just a payment system. This is philosophical. I was like, hell yeah, this is philosophical. Right. This is the red pill to the financial matrix. This is gunpowder to the bows and arrows of legacy banking. Like, this is absolutely serious, and I highly encourage you to do that. And he was like, can I call you? I was like, okay, sure, like, you can call me. And then I missed a couple of his calls, and he called me again. I was like, I'm looking to do an article about like libertarianism versus totalitarianism, and it seems like you're in an interesting position. I was like, all right, sure. Like, you know, and I picked up the phone and talked to him for a while and, like, you know, explained especially the nature of objective versus subjective journalism, and how, you know, the current media du jour is always presenting itself as, you know, objective, but they're so subjective. You know, objective means just reporting the facts. Subjectives means reporting the facts and spinning it with your own narrative. And, like, you know, Canada is like the most, it's a real art that the Canadian media has to objective subjective journalism. You know, they deserve awards for how good they are at it. And so, you know, anyways, I had a great article with him. The editors at the end of the day are the ones who write the headline and that secondary line.
Makes
so he
sense.
didn't write anti-vaxxer. That was the editors that did that. Am I an anti-vaxxer? No, I believe that vaccines have a place in public health, but I am completely 100% against the vaccine, the COVID vaccine injection, experimental vaccine, like completely against it.
Because it's been too rushed? What's your particular concern?
Because it's been too rushed.
Yeah.
Because COVID doesn't qualify as a pandemic according to the pre-pandemic qualifications, because COVID has been sold to us under fear and has been propagated by fear for the last year of fear, death, like demise, stay at home, be safe, stay safe, like isolate, lockdown, social distance, wear a mask, be afraid. And then all of a sudden the vaccine comes along. And from the very beginning, they were positioning the vaccine as the hope. We're not going to get back to normal until we have a vaccine. We had all, like, you know, the media ran that gauntlet all around the world. Same line. We won't get back to normal until there's a vaccine. So from the very beginning, the intention of this entire thing, in my opinion, has been to vaccinate everybody with this, you know, with this experimental injection. I don't even know if we can call it a vaccine. And now we're getting really close to, you know, it being rolled out, and they're using the military to roll it out. And there's scientists coming out saying, look, we found non-vaccine drugs that completely kill this and end this thing right now. Ivermectin was one of the drugs that was highlighted last week in the US Senate by a physician, like, just saying it's a miracle drug. And, you know, in asking people, like, if there was a drug that was 100% effective against COVID, stop the transmission, like, would you support that? Would you support that? Could we stop the vaccine, the injection agenda, if that were in place? And, you know, that's something I asked on a news channel the other day, and the doctor I was asking it to, he as soon as I finished the question, he wasn't on the call anymore.
So, I mean, do you think it's coordinated though? Because I don't personally, I do, like, I understand why politicians are, you know, why they do the lockdowns. I mean, it's to cover their own butts. No one wants the headlines of, you know, all these people, you know, the hospitals filling up and death and whatnot. And they probably feel that's their only option, right? So I don't know if this is sort of any sort of coordinated effort to get people vaccinated. I think they don't really know what else they can do.
Right. So is it coordinated? Is the question? Or, like, what would suggest?
Like, I don't think Bill Gates is at the top, you know, like pulling, you know, the strings, you know.
I don't think Bill Gates specifically. I think he is like, you know, a front man, a speaker for, you know, maybe we'll call it the spider, or we can call it the corporatocracy, or we can call it, you know, the New World Order, or whatever you want to call it. You know, I think we can look very clearly to October 2019, Event 201 taking place in New York, put on by the World Economic Forum, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the Johns Hopkins University, in which they held a 3-day pandemic preparedness seminar where they role played a global coronavirus. Mm-hmm. And that's where, how does the coordination takes place? This is where the coordination takes place. They had CNN. CNN was like their media producer for it, that did all the fake interviews of it. I'm not sure how, if you watched any of the videos or are familiar with it, but it's highly worth watching because it's incredible.
So I mean, okay, so you take someone Bill Gates who has like more money than God. Like, what's his incentive here?
I mean, more money He
Does he
has
need more
more money
money?
than
Yeah.
God, and it goes back into more control. I mean,
Okay.
he's spoken a long time about how there's too many people on the planet. He's been a heavy vaccine pusher, and like he's spoken about depopulation agenda. He's spoken about vaccinating everybody. He's actually used in one of his speeches vaccines as a method towards depopulation. I don't know
Mm.
exactly how that makes sense, from a a logical point of view or a traditional
I
point of
think
view.
I think I read that article or some commentary about it. What he was saying was that like right now in the third world, you have
There'll be
people
less miscarriages. There'll be less
yeah, I mean
lost babies. So we won't
yeah,
have to have
because
such big
they
families.
exactly, you don't have to have such big families, so, if the
Right,
mortality rate goes down, right?
right, right. I mean, what do you see? Do you see any like any benefit to from potentially injecting and identifying every person on the planet?
Oh, well, you asked two separate things there. So you talk about because we'll need to have like vaccine passports. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, I mean, so like, yeah, there are two things there. There
Right.
is definitely the identification and like the vaccine passports and digital
Right.
identity and the idea of sovereign versus like mandated you know,
Like, I mean, okay, so
identity.
my personal perspective here is that I think the pandemic is real, but also that politicians will use any circumstance to their advantage, right? So I'm not like, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'll take the vaccine. If they say it's safe, I'm going to take it. Because I have elderly parents and whatnot. I mean, I don't want to, you know, I'll take it.
And what questions will you ask in order to make the determination of answering of quelling any sentiment that it might be dangerous within your
Well, I mean,
you're a smart guy, like.
I don't know if they're going to ask. I don't know if they're going to give me that platform to ask any questions, but
Or you in doing your own research,
right, yeah.
like what would you like to know?
Well, yeah. I mean, if it does seem a little crazy that here's the thing. Just a couple months ago, they were saying, "Well, we're not going to get it before summer 2021," right? Like that seemed to be the consensus, and now we've got it in December, and that's it. 2021 was already sort of like an accelerated timeline because these things normally take 8 or 10 years. So that, I mean, it does seem a little questionable to me. I'm hoping, and maybe I'm just like a statist here, but I'm hoping that, Health Canada, they're doing their job and they're nonpartisan. They're not bending to politics, and if it's safe, they'll approve it. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else I can do as an individual. I mean, I guess I could refuse taking it. My
Well, I
employer
mean,
might make me take it.
I'm looking at your lips saying this, then I'm looking at your brain, and like, what does your hat say?
Yeah, don't trust, verify. But I mean, there's more to it than that. It's like the last thing I want. Like, I mean, the last thing I wanted. I care less about my health than the health of those around
And
me.
your
So I mean,
children.
yeah,
You
as
have a
well.
daughter, correct?
Exactly. But I mean,
So, like,
kids
the
don't really
idea
do
of
it.
subjecting a daughter, especially when
Yeah.
not knowing the long-term like fertility ramifications
Right.
of a potential injection, like putting something
Yeah.
experimental that potentially could what there's been questions about why they haven't been testing on
Yeah.
pregnant women and putting covenants to not procreate while under vaccine trial observation.
It's rough because to get into the school system, they might need to take it. So my hands might be tied there. And it's like, yeah, maybe I could homeschool, but that's not really feasible for my family situation.
Well, there's a lot of but there understand that also, like, I'm sure if you asked every neighbor around you, a lot of people also would are concerned about
Yeah.
this. And I think it's okay to be concerned. And I think it's okay to ask questions. That's why I
Yeah,
feel
absolutely.
like, I needed to say this and step out and say, like, I have questions and I am not comfortable. And the idea that that our mainstream media has been scaring the shit out of us for a
Yes.
year
No,
now.
I totally
Now
agree
that
with you.
they're pushing this onto
They
us
have an
as
agenda.
open
Yeah.
safety. That is questionable.
Yeah,
That
you put
is
out a
red flag.
tweet. You put out a tweet that doesn't follow, the consensus and you get a little banner at the bottom of your tweet, or your YouTube video gets yanked down. I agree. I mean, the media
Right?
clearly has agenda. People should be free to
Yeah,
ask
you gotta
questions. I have no
you
problem
should
with
put a
that.
disclaimer in front of this video.
Yeah.
You know, to
That's a good point. This might get pulled down. I didn't even think about
that's what
that.
it seems like people are doing now, is like put a disclaimer saying, you know, the views in here might be contrary to, you know, the World Health Organization's official standard views.
I don't even know if they give you that benefit of the doubt. I think YouTube said, or at least it was with Trump, actually. They were saying, like, anyone who says the election was stolen.
Was not stolen.
It was, sorry?
It said it was not stolen.
Okay, we won't get it. That's a whole other topic, yeah. But yeah, they're just going to start pulling down videos. Like, you can't even dispute it. Like, you got to follow that mainstream narrative or your video's gone. Anyways.
Yeah. And so that, and then, you know, on that call too, I was asked, like, you know, Kyle, I hear, you know, it's been suggested to me that you're one of the lead organizers of the QAnon. Like, what?
That's awesome.
What? Like,
where did he get that?
Mean? Like, what does that even mean? I'm like, no, I'm not. I'll say it again. I'm not, like, you know, actively involved whatsoever in QAnon organization, chapter running, you know, whatever it is, like, you know, as an organization. But then I followed it up by saying, look, I'm a father. I'm a believer in justice and honor. Yeah. And I do not believe that, like, you know, that human trafficking, sex trafficking, and child trafficking are things that should be permitted. Like, you know, and that anybody who engages in that should be subject to justice and the law. And, you know, it seems like, you know, one of the major points of this is of QAnon is to highlight the fact that there's a bunch of shit going on in Hollywood and in upper echelon political circles. And, you know, to like, okay, you know, it's been verified by many, and to, you know, and to believe that to be automatically branded Q that has been, like, you know, this, and all of a sudden, and then one of the annoying things, or not the annoying, one of the things about Q is that Donald Trump is the super Saiyan savior of everything. And he's going to do everything and fix it all. I was like, no, I mean, I don't, like, you know, that places too much. And sure, if that's the way, you know, it wants to be modeled up, go for it. But, you know, at the end of the day, like, you know, human trafficking, bad. Sex trafficking, bad. Child trafficking, terrible. Like, you know, anybody who engages in that, like, you know, we understand. And also honeypotting, like, understand honeypotting and the use of human trafficking, sex trafficking, and child trafficking to have people compromise, and to understand, like, you know, the deep power structures of the way things work, or may work. It begs all sorts of questions. At the end of the day, like, you know, my conversation started out about Bitcoin and about crypto, and my mission, my, like, you know, my purpose is many different things. But I feel like, you know, I'm a light worker, and I'm just trying to shed light and protect people and have people ask questions and be a source of, you know, of knowledge, and a polarizing person. Like, I polarize in my own sphere. I go far that way to try and find some sort of balance. I believe that, you know, in society, we have to have different points of view. In my discussions with a couple different media sources over the last couple of days, you know, there's been like, you know, people are saying you shouldn't have a voice to express your opinions. You shouldn't be allowed to talk.
The deplatforming drives me nuts. I can't stand that.
Yeah.
Like, even like, it's like, yeah, you know what, Alex Jones, he talks a lot of nonsense, but, like, why would you deplatform him? It's ridiculous. Like, if you don't agree with him, well, you have evidence. You know, it's like, well, he's talking about space aliens and all this stuff. It's like, just to remove him from all these platforms. First of all, it gives him more kind of an allure to it. I don't agree with that, and I don't think Twitter should be really, like, I'm for. You know, I mean, it's free markets. It's their platform. They can do what they want, but at the same time, it's kind of become the public square. And I think
it's public service.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially when it's being used as a public service by you know, by governments as a government.
Well, and all these same
and
companies, the
public
Googles, the
institutions.
Twitters of the world, they're the same ones who are like, well, we need net neutrality when it comes to ISPs, right? We need them to be neutral. We don't need to be neutral, but they need to be. Like it's so just hypocritical. Anyway, so here's an interesting quote from the article. I'm seeing sensible, intelligent people, my friends, my family, our elected representatives, willing to sacrifice their basic human rights in response to this COVID crisis. Now is not the time to sit on the sidelines as our life gets steamrolled. Do you want to expand on this a little bit?
Certainly.
Sure.
9/11 was a good example of us, like, you know, in the name of well, it was a invisible enemy. We lost all sorts of rights. They, like, you know, they used that as an excuse to take away everything.
Yeah.
And COVID, God, we've lost right to assembly. We've lost right to travel. We've lost freedom of speech. Like, we've lost. What else have we lost in this? Like, you know,
Right.
we've lost so much. We've gained in some respects as well. I think, you know, it's able a lot of people to kind of like settle down, take a little bit of time to think about themselves, what's possible, what their true purpose is. Like, you know, pre this, things were pretty hectic. I know in my life I was bouncing around like crazy.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm really grateful for, you know, the happenings that might be. But in general, I'll say, like, you know, we have lost a lot of rights, and we've seen a very divided population of this. And when you have, it's like, you know, did you see that Simpsons like clip about the media planning just another pandemic?
You know what? I'm sure I've seen it.
It was a really good one, and it was like, you know, they made it the cat flu virus.
Oh, I saw this.
But the goal was like, we need something to just lock people to their televisions.
Right. Yeah.
And, like, you know, they locked people to the televisions. They, like, you know, forced everybody back into this really narrow view.
Yeah.
And then, you know, again, those core values of freedom of assembly. Like, you know, when you stop people from actually being able to gather and discuss, especially when there's potentially some really shady activities going down, that everybody isolated, you know, they won't necessarily.
Well, they took a break over the summer, and there was some assembly. It depends on what your platform is, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, they've also just, like, you know, feel like, you know, with the masking, it's like, you know, it really dehumanized people to the point where, you know, there's a lot, like, you know, that's 50% of their face. There's a lot that goes on in there, you know, in human connection, which has been lost, you know, which is why, if you're opposed to the masks, but you don't want to, you know, endanger anybody else, I suggest, you know, about ways that you can be kind of subversive in showing your opposition without just wearing a face diaper. Like, you know, potentially put on, you know, you can order a burqa and wear a full Afghani burqa.
Yeah.
It's got 3 plies. It's super safe, super safe. And it's also a symbol of, like, you know, what we've allowed ourselves to get to.
Yeah, it does scare me a bit because, you know, everyone thinks it's temporary. It's like, well, we're just giving up these rights temporarily for this pandemic, but maybe this is the new normal, you know, and you kind of, it's a creeping, you know, progression.
We're never going back to the old.
Right. So what do you think about the Great Reset? Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's a book written by Klaus Schwab, His Highness leader of the World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
These are words that have been repeated all across the world by major leaders. There's a couple of key phrases like "build back better."
Yeah.
Used all around the world in every leading country by their you know, official spokesperson leaders. And
And they're saying you won't own anything by 2030, as if
Yeah,
that's
I
like a
think
good
that's
thing.
what
I
the
don't
heck
know.
is that? And then there's also like, there's talk about the IMF, debt reset program, debt relief program.
Yeah.
Basically, like, you won't own anything. Well, I currently own something. So how do I
Yeah.
get to owning nothing?
Right.
You ask. Well, that's involved saying, well, you have debt. And we've also like helped you out by giving you this free money for the last 10 years
Yeah.
because we were going through a global series of pandemics one year after another. And so, we gave you all that free money. Well, you actually owe us for all that money. And, you're going to, we're going to relieve all that debt in exchange for rights on your future
Yeah.
earnings.
It does keep me up at night a little bit, all this debt. Like, I'm in Canada, and it's something like $300 or $400 billion, which in the American equivalent would be about $3 trillion because we've got 1/10 the population.
Right.
And it's
And
just
like,
crazy.
at some point the government might go bankrupt.
Yeah.
And we might need to have a great debt reset of our government
But
debt.
what is debt? Debt is just, grandmothers owning like bonds, right? So how do you forgive debt? Really?
I mean, at a micro level, we would declare bankruptcy
Right.
to clear
But
debt.
I mean, that what people think, it's like, well, that's the government, but it's like people hold bonds. That's really what that debt is.
Right. Do you think like, that
That's someone's retirement.
Do you think somebody's been buying bonds for the $1 trillion that created? Do you think
No,
there have
of
been $1
course
trillion
not.
of deposits to issue the bonds? Like, no chance.
Yeah.
No chance. These guys they're spending out of their pocket, and they're not asking. There's no transparency offered back, and that's like one of the crises of centralization, especially.
Yeah. I was watching this video.
Power systems.
I was watching this video with Freeland the other day, and Pierre Polyev was just asking some questions about, how, the banking and whatnot. And he was getting very like angry at him, like, how dare you even ask these questions? And it's like, well, shouldn't it be transparent? Shouldn't all the citizens know what's going on? Like, it's kind of weird.
And these were, and those were they're not being true. They're showing that, either they've changed their tune or they were outright lying when they were running for election and, talking about transparency and accountability. And it doesn't matter it doesn't matter that there's economic, or there's, a pandemic taking place.
Right.
There needs to be integrity in our public institutions.
Yeah.
And this is where I believe blockchain and crypto is so important. Like, all transactions should be on a shadow ledger. All transactions hashed on the Bitcoin blockchain. Every single transaction. Like, before you bring digital identity to the public, you put yourselves on a fully transparent digital public system. Like, and then let's talk after that, like about how things go. Because you're seeking this technology for a small group to oversee everybody else. Well, how about we flip that pyramid upside down and we let everybody else just observe the small group? It's going to be a lot easier for us to make sure that things are being done above board with integrity, with value, and with honor, and in the best interests of our country and our citizens and our grandchildren and their grandchildren and our ancestors.
Exactly.
That's how I feel.
So one final question here, and I don't want to get too personal, but has your brother ever mentioned Bitcoin? Have you explained it to him? Does he even know what it is? Is that too personal?
He definitely knows what Bitcoin is.
Yeah? Okay.
He definitely knows what Bitcoin is. I believe he to be more of a blockchain's cool. Like, blockchain not.
So you've had talks with him. Like, he knows, he understands it.
Of course. I gave him some of those cards.
Nice. So Justin Trudeau has Bitcoin. Okay.
I've been doing this I've been in crypto since 2013.
Yeah.
He's my bro.
So how does he feel about it?
I think he he was really interested in blockchain and distributed ledger technology.
Yeah.
Again, I wouldn't say that Justin is a scholar of monetary policy or economics.
Okay.
That's just not it takes or business for that matter. He is. We've never really gotten too deep on it, or went back and forth too much on it. I have made the case very clear that Canada is a hotbed of innovation within this space.
Yep.
And we have some of the brightest minds in the world when it comes to it. And like, if we support that innovation, there is, a tremendous amount of growth and, and prosperity that can result from it. And if we, do not support it, then we're going to see our talent leave us and leave the country and go elsewhere. And I've also said no short words too, that this technology is so transformative that we can't apply this tech to the old systems. Like, we need to understand, well, we've got this tech in play now. How do we change the game to succeed in the interests of our people the best?
Right.
I think those are questions that warrant a lot of discussion and public involvement, and understanding that, moving forward, we can't it's not about assuring that we have a strong middle class that is perpetually stuck in the middle class and just trying to stay off of being out of the lower class. But we really make sure that we can create equitable conditions for everybody to succeed within Canada and to deliver a quality of life, above and beyond, what we've seen or have, what our parents have seen or our grandparents have seen. And we have so many exponential techs all colliding at the same time right now. And, those who wish to control, I feel, use the arguments of fear to try and suppress, innovation and growth. And those who innovate and grow want to just, build and create and bring awesome things to market and discuss and be collaborative and question assumptions and think critically about solutions, and the challenges, and criticize by creating. So
awesome. So, you know what? I want to thank you, Kyle, for speaking with me today. Buy some Swiss key cards in his book, The Unified Wallet. I'll include some links below. Kyle, is there anything else you want to say?
I mean, Mike, how can I or we as a community support you and help you?
You know what?
More realizing.
Like this video and share it. I think it's been a great conversation. Kyle, where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
I don't know. Twitter's pretty easy. I'm at Kyle Kemper on Twitter. I've got a Patreon subscriber. I just got my second subscriber the other day.
Nice.
So that's there. I don't know. There's a YouTube channel that I have. I made a video about how much Bitcoin one should own, which has a formula that I've worked on for years, which is very simple, which is very interesting. I don't know. LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever you want.
Awesome.
I'm pretty accessible, and I love to help people. And if I've said something that may offend you or make you feel bad, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I'm thankful for everybody's kind of attention and input and assistance, and I'm really just grateful for you, Mike, and for your audience for listening, for having me here and offering the opportunity to have a little bit of a discussion.
Yeah, anytime. And we don't agree with it on everything, but it's thought-provoking, and I'm glad we had this talk. So thanks again, Kyle. And
most welcome, Mike. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks again.
And Mike, you've just been such a legend in this space for such a long time. I'm just I'm so glad it's taken us a long time.
Yeah.
It's only going to get better from here.
Awesome. Thanks again, Kyle. Great job.